Check it out, check it, check it out, check it, check it, check it out, check it.
Hey, Greg and the CE, call me hip hop junkie. Straight to your dome piece like grass monkey. All I wanna know, do you wanna get funky? CNC beats be kick.
Yo, 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 it's your host with the most, KDK Capri, the mentor and the mentee, and we're back with another episode. Today is Wealth Wednesday, y'all, and I came with a special guest today. I got Mr. Earl Hardin. He is the managing partner at taxerasers.com, and what he does and what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk a little bit about wealth building. Like I said, it's Wealth Wednesday. We like to chop it up, and I got another interview for y'all, and we are going to speak on how to build some wealth today. We're going to jump on a little bit of everything, but Earl, I'm going to let him introduce himself. But what I want to tell y'all about Earl is another Facebook connection, man. It's the power of connections, and it's the power of, just seeing other people doing the same thing that you might be wanting to get into, or, just collaborating and seeing other people do the same thing that you in the same space, right? So I want to highlight the level of collaboration and how important that is. And me and Earl are in the same city in Colorado Springs, but I've been seeing him do his thing, seeing him help people get funded, seeing him just being very, very active in the community, right? So I wanted to bring him on the podcast. But Earl, I appreciate you for coming on. Please let everybody know where you're from and what you got going on in 2026.
Hey, I appreciate you so much for having me on the show. And I love to see people win, and I love seeing my people get some money. And we are both big proponents of making that happen. I'm actually from Colorado Springs because my dad was in the Army, and we are aggressively building tax erasers right now. And we are aggressively looking at mergers and acquisitions to be able to buy cash flowing businesses so I can build my own portfolio to create multi-generational wealth. We're talking about the third generation. The first is evident. You got to get that off the hustle. The second comes from planning, and the third comes from structure and family constitution. So I'm so excited to rap with you and on all the other crossovers we have, and just give something of value to the people because they need it.
They do. And I think the biggest thing in 2026 is wealth building. Like, the economy is kind of like going down right now. Everybody's saying we might even be in a recession right now. But here's the big thing that I wanted to touch on when it comes to wealth building, and that's taxes, right? And I've been wanting to talk about taxes because a lot of people, like a lot of regular people, even people that have a 1099, do 1099 contract working, even people that have a W-2, they still need to learn how to dive into wealth building. And like you said, you're in third generation, so that comes with that hustle, that comes with that knowledge. So let me ask you this, like, why did you get into taxes? And like, coming from Colorado Springs, I'm also born and raised in Colorado Springs. What do you see in Colorado that's been that has been lacking in the tax area, and what are your plans for tax erasers this year?
Great question. So I fell into taxes by need. I got tired of mediocre tax planners that weren't helping me. I had a year where I gave all my documents to my CPA, and he said, wow, you did really great this year. So this is with my financial planning business, where we do everything from life insurance, trust, all that kind of stuff, helping people with their investment portfolios. So, you got to learn the skill first. You got to learn how to sell. You got to learn how to connect people. You got to learn how to serve people. So once we got that going, start giving these documents over to the CPA, and they're like, wow, you did amazing this year. Looks like you're going to pay a whole bunch of taxes. I'm like, nah, that's why you're here, right?
You're right.
It said, these are the numbers I'm sending to the government. This is what I feel comfortable with. Okay, so that's year one. We come back to year two. I made even more money. And I'm like, look, I got to qualify for some cool tax program. Put me on the Warren Buffett plan, plug me in.
Yeah.
Same thing. Look, I wasn't going for the trilogy. Okay. So I went to a bunch of different conferences where I was hanging out with CPAs, where I was hanging out with enrolled agents, asking them what plans they were doing for people. And at the same time, I was talking to wealthy people making 7 and 8 figures, asking them, hey, what do you do to avoid taxes? Then that third year I came back and said, "Hey, I got myself an S corp. I did this, this, and this. I think it'll save me 35 grand on my taxes." And the CPA looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Yeah, this looks great. It will save you 35 grand."
Yeah.
At that point, I had never been so simultaneously angry and excited. I
Yeah.
was excited that I didn't have to break Uncle Sam off that 35K, but I was angry because I was immediately thinking I could have been doing this the last 3 years.
Yep. Mm.
Why didn't this CPA, who was great at compliance, great at forensic accounting, making sure the books were straight, why couldn't they help me? And that's when I learned one of the biggest misconceptions in all of business. Most of the time, your CPA is your tax prep person. They are not a tax strategist. A
Ooh.
tax strategist is going to ask you questions. They're going to ask you, what are your personal goals? What are your business goals? What are your legacy goals? How
Yep.
big do you want to grow your investment portfolio? Are you buying and selling businesses? Are you buying and selling real estate? My CPA never asked me any of these questions. So without that information, it was a huge hole in my wealth plan. Because the easiest way to double your wealth is to cut your tax liability in half. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna go get my CPA license. I'm gonna do it myself. I'm gonna go get it.
Yeah.
And right before then, I got the opportunity to work with Tax Hive, which, if you know Shark Tank, Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, got to work with those guys for a while and I learned some stuff. And then from there, it's like, okay, I don't need to be a CPA. I just need access to the intellectual property on the strategies and I need the infrastructure to pull it off. Whether that's Cadillacs, whether we're talking about solar, which is pretty much dead now, EV battery credits, aviation, movie credits, tiny homes. There are different sorts of trust structures. All I needed was to know how the strategy worked and the stuff behind it. And if I could put those two together, I could solve people's tax problem. But more importantly, I could keep them fundable because
Yeah.
most people are out here deducting everything, playing poor on paper because they
Yeah.
listen to Keisha the Tax God on YouTube and they're getting crazy advice. Keisha's don't come at me. But I'm just saying, you got to talk to people who are qualified to talk about what they're doing. I'm a certified tax and business advisor. I have almost 15 years in personal and business finance. And then I work with my team. We have 6 tax attorneys and almost 20 CPAs. So we
Yeah.
got the track record of success. But
Mm.
yeah, that's how I fell into taxes. And to answer your other question,
Yeah.
Colorado Springs does not have tax strategists. It's
No.
been wide open. Every time I'm in these rooms, I'm just like, so you guys just pay like 400,000 a year? They're like, yep, that's what we do. Wish it was less. Golly. I'm
Crazy.
like, look, if I save you all this money, you're gonna let me just keep it all since it doesn't matter?
Right.
So I'm excited to be able to put people in a position to win. A lot of that stuff starts with structure. A lot of it starts with, like, you got to begin with the end in mind. Even when you got that tiny little business that you're just getting out the mud, that you're bootstrapping, go get an
Yep.
LLC. When you get the LLC, go get 3 bank accounts. Like, that's something that I tell clients all day long. You got to have at least 3. You got one account where all the money comes in. You got
Right.
one account where all the expenses go out. And then from that expense count, your taxes.
Yep.
So you can, so that way, if anything funny happens at a bank, and banks love to get hilarious. So you got to stay spread out, but you're also gardening these relationships where you and I know how to go, take them into the bank and get that funding once they have the right points.
Right. Yeah. That's real. And I'm gonna tell you something that I took away from what you said. And that kind of brings me into my next question. Finding someone who's like really qualified, that's really hard, especially in the springs, especially. And I want to hear what are your thoughts on like finding the right advisor, because a lot of people don't even know what to look for. And like you said, it has to do with what are your plans. Like if you want like to make, if you're revenue based and you want to look at something like, okay, I know I'm going to make $1 million next year, you might want to get yourself a good tax strategist and who also is in business. But how do you like, what is your advice for people who are just starting out and they're looking for a tax advisor and they need to find someone who's not gonna, not give them, not run game and give them the runaround, or not even have the knowledge at all?
Well, the first thing you could do is educate yourself. I always
Mm,
say informed people make great decisions for themselves. And
yeah,
I tell my clients that every day. And I ask them questions. So here's a key. If you're sitting down with a specialist and an advisor and they are not asking you a bunch of questions and they just give you some cookie cutter plan, run.
yeah,
If they don't have anyone who's ever helped them that they've helped before, run. If they can't answer basic questions, run. But for you to be
yeah,
able to ask the right questions, you have to educate yourself. And that's the part where a lot of people mess up, whether it's the life insurance game, whether it's, securities and investing or real estate. They just want to pay somebody to do it for them. Now, if you got hundreds of millions of dollars, that's a different case. You can go to the best of the best. When you are just starting to build your wealth, you got to find the time to learn. And it's not that you're a subject matter expert, just that you know enough to know when 2 plus 2 equals 4, and they're not showing you 2 plus 2 equals 22.
that's and I do the same thing in credit repair, right? Because when you want to teach someone about credit repair, a lot of people just pay for it and then they, wonder why a year later or 6 months later certain things may came back on, or they don't know how to really operate when it comes to someone collecting them, trying to collect a debt or anything like that, right? So I think as, advisors or consultants, any tax strategist, any person who's in finances, you have to know what you're doing. And then when you do and you find your clients, you got to be informed and you got to find informed clients. Like when I first started in credit repair, before I even got into credit repair, I had to learn about credit repair and I had to learn about how credit worked so I can even get myself right before I wanted to even, help someone else, right? So I think that's huge when you talk about finding the right advisor. You got to know what to look for, and if you don't even know the broad subject matter of taxes and what you need to put on each box or what it looks like when you repair your credit, you're not you're just gonna you're setting yourself up for finding a sucker anyway, right? So let me ask you this, because you mentioned C corps, or I think you mentioned S corps, right? You said a C corp or S
Mm-hmm.
corp.
Yeah, yeah, I said escort.
Okay, S corp. So why should people like? Why do you think people like? Because me as someone who does funding, right? I tell people don't go get an LLC, at least when you're starting like certain type of businesses. So why did you choose a S corp versus getting an LLC or any other corporation? Like, what is it about the different entities that helps you with taxes?
That's a great question. So, you can have an S corp in two different ways. You can be a sole proprietor, which means you just go get an EIN and you run your business, or you're running your business as yourself, as the person. So there's no separation between you and ABC company, which is a terrible idea because you have 100% liability. If
Yeah,
somebody decides to sue you for anything, and we are a litigious society, we have more lawyers than doctors. We have more lawyers than teachers. And they get paid a crazy amount of money because folks are always looking for something for nothing, right?
right,
So, I advise people to get some structure. You could also use a business trust. There are some different things you could do, but you need to separate yourself from the business. And that's how we know
yep,
it's a real business because you and I know how to go credit stack. Once they have an EIN, we know how to go get them the bag and get them rounds and rounds of funding and how to play the game or even do like CDFI funding. Like it's a lot of dope stuff that we can do to help our clients.
right,
Once they have the structure, then we're talking about taxes. I've met plenty of people that have an S corp with no LLC, and they're like, "Oh, I'm protected." No, you're not. An
mm,
S corp is just a tax designation. It's just a form saying that I have a company and I am paying myself a wage. And the
Yep.
reason you do that is because it self saves you on the self-employment tax, the FICA tax. So when you work a job, everybody sees those numbers coming out and they get mad, like, dang, they hit me upside the head. My
Mm-hmm.
gross pay is not my net pay. And when you see that FICA tax come out, that 7 or so percent, half of it comes from you, half comes from the employer. And then the whole goes to the IRS, which is roughly about 15%. Well, when you're the business owner, you are the employer. So the
Yep.
whole thing comes from you. So a lot of people, once you start making some money, you end up getting double taxed on that portion. And that's an easy 10, 20, sometimes $30,000 in overpaying the IRS. I'm all good with paying my fair share, but not a penny more. It's just like if I went to a restaurant and I got the worst service ever, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give a 10% tip. I understand you're still working, you're a human, maybe you have an off day. I'm not going to get terrible service and give a 70% tip, but that's
Right.
exactly what people are doing by being in the wrong entities.
Mm. I like the way you explained it because when you think about it like that, you have to think about what, like you said, structure. Like, what structure do you want to have? And if your goal is making wealth, then that has to be a priority, right? So that brings me
Hmm.
to holding companies. What do you think? How do you think holding companies play into structure? And can somebody that has one business work with a holding company, or what does that structure look like, and how should you start now? When does an entrepreneur say I need a holding company?
I say you can get a holding company once you start building wealth. So get your first entity, because I've also seen people go to the extreme end where they haven't made $1, but they have three different Wyoming trusts stacked on top of
Yeah.
each other, with a Delaware Statuette trust, with a Nevada trust. And I'm like, man, you got the coldest structure in the game. It's too bad there's no money in those accounts.
Right.
So like, let's make the money first, because we only make money by serving others.
Yep.
I'm so big on servant leadership. If service is beneath you, then leadership is out of your reach. So we got to serve our community and serve our clients and serve our strategic partners as well. People have to understand that their network is much, much bigger than just what goes into the pipeline of what pays you, because that's how
Yep.
you really make an impact and use your influence. So once you get some money going, there are so many different ways you can use holding companies. We use holding trusts, where we might have a structure with a business trust on top, and we got a family trust underneath that.
Mhm.
And the business trust is holding the capital. That way,
Okay.
if someone sues the business, you're like, we don't own anything. We don't have any money.
Yep.
What are you going to sue us for? And then from the business trust, you could move it into the family trust and pay yourself. So we're talking about, in that case, probably someone running a business themselves, or a husband and wife team. Or if you have partners, you could split it up into the TCUs, those trust certificate units. So all the partners are getting money going into their private family trust too. So it can get as crazy as you want it to be. Like, I have seen some structures or I had to put on another set of glasses just to understand where
Yeah.
everything was going. I think the key thing is just to make some money, serve folks, and as you grow, um, more money, more problems. It's levels to this. So as you hit a new level, be ready for a new devil. And that's when you should be talking either to your current advisor who could lead you there, or maybe you outgrow that professional and you need a new one. It's
Yep.
part of the game. Like Nip says, everybody can't go.
Yeah. Mm. It's crazy. I'm glad you brought up Nip. I just bought his book. What is it? It's right here. The business book. Shoot. I just bought the Hustlenomics. That's what I just bought. So I'm glad that you brought up Nip, because when it comes to really making money, you got to know how to protect it. Like, that's what taxes is for, and that's what people like you are for. So let me ask you this question. Do you recommend doing taxes by yourself? And if you do, what can someone do? Like, what are some few steps that you would give someone if they do their taxes by themselves?
Geez, self-filing is tough because you're a victim of what you don't know, and that can be
Mm,
very expensive. You're just doing the QuickBooks thing. You're like, oh, I'm not really making money. I'm not worried about it. I do my own payroll. I do all that kind of stuff. I think that business owner is still in an employee mindset. The only thing that's changed is now they own a job.
yeah,
My business partner and I, because we have a podcast as well, we'd love to have you on it. It's
yeah,
called the Asset Class, and we teach about a different asset every single episode. So he's a business coach. He gets into businesses, he looks at all their numbers, and he helps them scale to 300% growth in a year. So he'll change their SOPs. He'll change the communication with the customers, all that kind of stuff, so that the business can grow.
mm,
um, I think too many people are caught up on saying, I need to control everything. I need to do everything. They want 100% of nothing. I'd rather have 10% of a giant. Like if you
mm.
got 10% of Apple right now, you have billions and billions and billions of dollars, right?
Yes, sir.
So so I would encourage people to start off where it's affordable. Tax prep, you can get good tax prep for like $800 or $900. That's nothing to know that everything was filed the right way and that you're not going to be wearing them prison oranges or them prison blues. I call them federal oranges. I always say, hey, we keep the
Yep.
compliance officers here because they don't cook food like I like to eat it in prison.
They didn't hear that one. Yep, I hear that. And I think, the biggest thing when it comes to, doing taxes by yourself is like you said, you want to have it's slow money is better than no money, right? And when you think about, trying to build wealth and trying to create something, you can't do it by yourself and you have to have a team. And that layer of protection is where you find the best tax people I mean, the best people, excuse me, like the richest people getting the best, advice. They're getting the best rates. They're getting the best everything. So I want to move on to something else, right? Because you said something on your website. I was looking at your website, and I'm gonna quote you right here on the website. It said 93% of businesses overpay on taxes. So let me ask you: do
Mhm.
you think that that's by design?
Mm, that is a powerful question. I think it is definitely a result of ignorance because people always think education is too expensive until they pay
Mm,
the bill for ignorance. So by
yep,
not paying the advisor, not going to a conference, not reading the book, not getting on the YouTube with the tax attorney or whatever way that you're learning viable strategies, it's going to cost you in the long run. And like I said in the beginning, you know, people just doing tax prep and thinking that's tax strategy because that's what I was doing. And you're just wondering why your tax bill is going up as your income goes up. You
yep,
never want those things to correlate ever. You want your tax liability to go down as your wealth is going up because that's how you really start to hyper accumulate wealth, and that's when you get that FU money, or you
yeah,
get that I'm gonna build a hospital money. I'm gonna buy my whole hood type of money, and we're
yep,
gonna gentrify the area, and I'm gonna put people in it that look like me and people that have experiences like me, so those families can also get wealthy like me.
yeah. That was a powerful answer too, because like you said, buying back the hood is something that everybody wants to do. Like they want to go back and build something in their own neighborhood. And let me ask you, how does our community start buying back the hood? We talked about financial literacy, but how do we
Mhm.
start putting like that feet to pavement and actually getting out there and, putting our, our dreams and our manifestations into like bringing it into fruition?
I think we have to hit a cultural shift as a people because we can move with such scarcity mindedness. I know you've heard it a million times. It's crabs in a barrel. As soon as you start rising up, somebody's hating on you. I got people who I reached out to that are friends that I've done business with, or I've just done right by them my whole life, Hey,
Yep.
I heard you got this problem. I can solve it for you. Let's get a discovery call. Nope. They put a post on Facebook. 5 people tagged me in the post saying, you need to talk to him. This is what he does all day, every day, and twice on Sundays.
Mm.
Then that person still didn't go with me, went with someone else, got scammed out of 10 grand, then came back and said, hey, can you help me?
Nah.
We got
Yeah.
to get out of the scarcity mindset. It's okay if your neighbor hits it before you. It's okay if your homeboy or homegirl makes it big before you. Like, there is no limit to abundance. There's space for all of us to win because we all want different things. And there
Right.
really is no competition at the top. Today, I talked to multiple different tax firms where they're going to send clients my way because I do what they don't. And guess what? They do what I don't.
Yep.
So I can send them my low cost tax prep clients and know they're going to get taken care of. Will I make money off of it? I structure deals well, so I'll make a little money off of it.
Yep.
It might even be it might be $50, nothing crazy. But knowing that the client's taken care of the right way is great. For me, it's even better knowing someone in my network is building their wealth off of my network and they're going to
Yes.
do the same thing and share it with me. It's always collaboration at the top. So we want to buy the block back. We got to get the mind piece first. Second piece is taking actionable information and executing on it.
Yep.
Once we create a fund and we want to buy the block back, we got to have qualified people. We got to have all the paperwork right. Everything's got to be transparent. And then we have to have a little bit of faith and grace to get it done.
Yep.
We're trying to build this wealth now. We're going through what other communities went through in the 1800s, 1700s, except we're doing it without getting granted land and money from the government.
Yep.
We're just getting it out of the dirt, so it's gonna take time, so we have to have grace.
We do. And two things, right? When Earls is talking about, listening to other people, right? Don't be mad. Don't even like it's not even about, being jealous or anything. It's about understanding that, that person that you grew up with and if they went and did something, right? Because I literally hear what you're saying. I literally went through the same thing. You get up and you start, making some money and you start telling people, because you always want to bring it back to the block, right? We want to bring it back to the people that we know
Mm-hmm.
and we want to help them eat. But like you said, it's not crowded at the top. It's actually crowded at the bottom, and a lot of people get that very very that's a big misconception when it comes to money. And another thing is like our community, black people, we don't want to collaborate, right? We want to be, we want to feel like we came up and we did it and we did it by ourselves. But that's why most of us end up broke after a couple years, or our businesses fail, or we don't know how to, scale that business. We might be stuck at 10K a month or something like that because we don't know the power of collaboration. And that's a big thing. That's another reason why I brought you on the podcast, because I think it's huge, because two people in the same space could still make money together. It has nothing to do with me and you could sell the same thing. But like you said, I just had a conversation with this lady, right? We was talking about credit repair. She's in credit repair and funding. We're gonna do a 3-day event together. She's gonna talk about funding because she's like, more based in the knowledge about that. I just, send people to the funding team. But I know a lot about funding. I know how to go get the credit stack, and I know how to teach people that. But I'm in credit repair. I love to talk about credit repair. I like to break down laws. So in every single way we complement each other. So that's a big thing that a lot of people don't understand. You can still make money, and maybe somebody wants to go with Earl, but they came through me, and they might resonate with Earl more than they resonate with me, and vice versa, right? So there's so much
Mm-hmm.
room at the top. And another thing about it is you want to make all the money, right? We want to get a space where it's a one-stop shop, right? We want to have so many different people on our team so that not only everybody's winning, but we're also winning, because the more the people around you win, the more you win. You're only as strong as your weakest link. So if your people ain't eating and you go up and you're the smartest in the room, you in the wrong room. So I think that that's one thing I really wanted to talk about too. And the second thing is, You mentioned building a fund. So let's get into the wealth building, right? So what is a fund and why should people start thinking about getting a fund? Why should people start thinking about raising money?
Well, once you get your securities license 7, you can create a fund for real estate or for business. And that's just a pool of money. It's saying
Mm,
I can go out to investors and say, hey, put your money into this, and I'm going to use these funds responsibly to get you a return, but also to acquire assets. Because the craziest thing that I really didn't understand when I was in business school was where people were getting the money to do these deals. I'm like,
yep.
I don't have rich parents. My parents didn't have rich parents. I barely know anybody with rich parents. I can't do this.
Hmm.
When it should have been positioned was, how do I get other people's money? How do I get people to buy into my vision? How do I speak their language and create a community impact so good that people are breaking their necks to invest in it? So that's how we start a fund, and we can use funds to buy real estate, or we can use it to buy businesses and be in that mergers and acquisition space, which is the buttery hotness right now. It is, I wish I understood this better years ago. I know some people from like Earn Your Leisure and whatnot, and they were trying to get me like, oh, you got to buy a storage facility. It cash flows better than real estate. And for my own ignorance, I am not a real estate guru. I know just enough to know the pitfalls of each investing strategy. So that's what's kept me out of real estate. This year, I'm gonna get a couple investments in, and I'm looking to purchase a couple of my first companies so I can buy cash flow. Just lost you on the sound.
My bad. And I think that's the goal too. I think the goal should be to buy and sell, right? I think a lot of misconception in the business space, period, is that you need to have a business, you need to hold on to it, you need to grow it, and you're just gonna have it forever. That's not the reality of the business world, and that's not what the rich do. They buy and they sell, they get assets, and they protect their assets. So let me ask you this: when it comes to mergers and acquisitions, how does someone start and how do they go find that money? Because, like you said, when you first started out, you're like, where is this money coming from? How do I get this money? Right. So what do
Mhm.
you have to say to someone who's maybe even not even an entrepreneur yet, but what if you're an entrepreneur and just like ourselves and we're like, okay, I'm at the stage where I want to start investing. What advice do you have for them to where they could start getting into buying and selling?
That's a great question. And people who are working a W 2 will be able to take this route as well. My first step would be make as much money as possible doing what you're doing. Get that bread up. Even if you're working a job, get the promotions. If you're in a sales position, max out your commission. Like, make sure you are putting money to the side regularly. If you will pay the House of Morgan on a credit card, you need to pay your last name every single month. You need to pay yourself first. Rather, and I'm not just talking infinite banking, because I know when people describe infinite banking, this is how they talk. It's got to go somewhere. So it could start off in a savings account. It can end up in life insurance. It can end up in a whole lot of different places. The power of life insurance, when used right, is ridiculous. And so many hyper wealthy people have crazy strategies that I could go on and on and on about. But get that money right first, then start educating yourself on the process. Get your credit right. Your personal credit needs to be A1.
Mm-hmm.
Personal credit's A1, start building business credit, because the SBA, it used to be only up to $5 million they would fund you. So it's government backed loan, really, really low rates for you to go and buy a business. And they make you put 10% down. Who said the 10% had to come from your bank account? What if it came from 0% APR credit cards?
Yep.
That's a killer move. On the business side, we don't commingle. We don't commingle, y'all. We run business like business.
Yep.
So here's the situation. These 14 million business owners that are baby boomers are retiring, called the silver tsunami. only 10% of the businesses for sale will ever be purchased. They're in a weird spot. They are too small for private equity. So if a company is 12 million or less, BlackRock can't buy it. Why? Because BlackRock would have to buy 2,000 of these companies just to move the needle a little bit for their investors. And you know how much it would cost to do the accounting on 2,000 businesses? It might cost as much as the business was making. You know, it
Right.
doesn't make it a viable investment. So it's too big for private equity. So that means there's this space where people like you and I can go buy a cash flowing business. Why won't it sell if it's cash flowing? I know somebody's asking that in the comment section because the the founder has a daughter that wants to be an Instagram influencer, son wants to be an NBA star, vice president doesn't even like plumbing, can't wait to get out of there because he wants to start a new career doing commercial real estate. So you have these people that want to chase their own dreams, and now the company has to shut itself down. If it's over $10 million, you can do an employee stock loan plan where the business basically buys itself and pays the owner out, and the board of directors run it. That's really cool. We have one of the best ESOP attorneys in the nation. But when it's smaller than that, that is our opportunity to come in and buy cash flow where sometimes you can seller finance. What does that mean? It means instead of just going to the SBA and getting a 90% loan to value on the business, you talk to the seller and you say, look, I know you're desperate to sell this. Why are you so desperate to sell it? I got to get out. My health is failing and I need the money for retirement. Got you. Don't you think this price is a little higher and you made it higher because you need the money? Yep. Well, here's what I'll do. I will give you that price, even though the market doesn't support it. Because if the market supported it, you would have been sold already, right? Right.
Yep.
But you're going to become the bank. So you're going to sell or finance the company to me and my team. And then every single month, we're going to pay you out monthly. So that way you have your stream of income for retirement for the next 15 years. How does that sound? Let's do it. You could seller finance the whole deal. You could seller finance 90% of the deal, 50. It's just whatever numbers make the most sense. There are some professionals out there that say never seller finance the whole thing. Put some skin in the game. Some people say if you get a sweet deal, you get a sweet deal.
Yep.
The thing that I want people to get from this conversation is that you could buy a business that's doing, $700,000 a year in revenue. The owner's paying himself $200,000. All the employees have their salaries. Business is pretty healthy and debt free. Cool. You end up buying that seller finance. It took none of your own money to pay yourself $200,000 a year. And then you get into that business and you change a couple of things. You get a professional team like my brother Jesse Bullock at Bullseye Consulting, where he's going to get into those numbers and he's going to dial you up and he's going to say, hey, we changed the marketing budget, we changed this and this and this.
Yep.
Company will grow 400%. Boom. So you do that, and then you put yourself in a position in year two where now, hypothetically, you can pay yourself $800,000. And you did all of this with none of your own money.
Yep.
Maybe you got to pay Jesse some equity in the company. It goes back to what we said before. Would you rather have 100% of nothing? Or would you rather have 80% of something that is crushing it and is growing and is growing? And then guess what? Once you have this business cash flowing, once you learn the game one time, you're already smarter. You know what's up. You can go buy another one. You could either buy the exact same business. Some people like to do that. It's called a roll up, where we buy the exact same business. We buy 4 plumbing businesses, all doing $1 million each. If those sold on their own, they might sell for $2 million. We put them all together into a pot. Now that $4 million entity, it doesn't sell for 8 million, it sells for 12 because there's multipliers when you get to certain revenue levels. And if we scale that thing up and we do what we did with the other business in the example, and we take that $8 million entity to a $16 million entity, we might get a 12x on it. So we might be able to sell that for $196 million. That's crazy.
Mm,
That's
it's
crazy.
crazy.
So that's
Yeah.
the type of stuff you can do here. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
meeting people that are doing this. I go to conferences with plumbers, electricians, handymen, not just people that are in blue collar, but at this particular conference, I met people that did three separate roll ups of four businesses, have a net
Mm,
worth of $175 million. They have a high school education, and then they have their professional license, and that's it, and they're
right.
up 175 million in 5 years.
Mm. Damn. That's what you on. And I think I'm gonna say this, right? And I think it was Derek Whitehead who said this. I'm pretty sure you know who Derek Whitehead is. He's one of the goats. He said you get money to do business, you don't do business to get money. And that's the big thing that I think people need to start understanding when it comes to really building wealth. Like I was just saying, Elon Musk just became the world's first trillionaire. No, but everybody knows he didn't go, pull $1 billion out of his pocket and go buy Tesla or whatever Tesla was, right? So I
Uh-huh.
think that that's important when you really start studying the rich, right? And I want to say something else I want to bring something else up, right? Just because you're not, a content creator or someone who does credit repair or you do taxes, you can be a plumber and still make money. You can be actually, those are one of the businesses that make the most money when we're talking about passive income and building like
Mm-hmm.
wealth streams, right? So when you look at those type of businesses, you have to start studying what the rich are doing and what the people who are really up are really doing. And they're really just studying the basics, and they're really just making the money off of assets, right? And compounding assets. And that's one thing that I wanted to hear from you, from somebody who's really rubbing shoulders with those people who are really doing it in plumbing and not necessarily in the financial space, right? And it's not all about the finances. Sometimes you like I'm glad you brought up seller financing, right? Because you can go not have you don't even have to have good credit to go start in seller financing. You don't have to have
Right.
credit at all, right? You don't have to do any of that, right? You can do
Because who's
you
the
know
bank? The
you're the
seller's
bank.
the bank.
Bow,
Yeah,
exactly. So, and that's why you got to have some money put up. You got to get your paper right, and you really got to start structuring your finances too. And I think budgeting is a big thing when it comes to that too. So let me ask you this. What are some of the businesses that you think people can start opening up to where they can make passive income, to where they can, because I believe about, there's a ladder to this, right? There's levels to this, right? So when you're first starting out, you want to start with something small. You might go get a laundromat, but what businesses do you recommend people can start opening up to where they can make passive income, to where they can start working on that, the tax erasers, or they can go open their salon, they can go start building their dreams, but they still have passive income coming in?
that's a great question. So it's all on the person's appetite because there are so many businesses that make money. I was kicking it with Pace Morby not too long ago when he was in town. Pace is like one of the biggest teachers of seller finance.
Yeah.
He owns IHateBanks.com because he wants to make deals with people. He wants to seller finance everything, whether it's airplanes or primary family residence, buying businesses. He's like, there are always deals to be made. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really on the person's appetite. Like you said, any business can be profitable. People get it twisted and think that they have to get into the credit space or business credit or taxes, trust, life insurance. Are those great businesses? Absolutely. But does that mean that's what you need to do? Not at all.
Mm-mm.
When I think about the gold rush in what was that, 1849 in California, the people who made the most money were the people who sold jeans to people and that
Mm.
sold shovels to people. That's how Levi Denim became the big brand because they were sewing up like, hey, we make pants tough enough for you to go down in there and find that gold. And people were buying the pants. They made a fortune. People that were selling shovels to these 49ers out there running around getting the gold made a fortune. So sometimes you got to look at the space in between and say, what is not being served right now? What can I do? I have a friend right now that's very successful with a laundry pickup drop off service. All they do is pick up and drop off the person's clothes um, from the laundromat. Like they don't wash them. They pick them
Mm,
up and drop them off, and they're killing it. That is such a simple idea. And you can look around your city and see what's going on, see what exists and what holes are there. Once you see the hole is there, do a little homework, get an LLC, get to work.
yep.
Well, what I say is like get the brand domain, then get the LLC, then get to work. Like
Yep.
when I trademarked tax erasers, it took 14 months for it to go through. And I was
Mm,
sweating bullets every day. I was like, oh my goodness, I hope somebody doesn't somehow hit me with the okey doke and whatnot. And a lot of people are like, I heard you got this tax company, but you're not marketing it. No, I refuse to build enterprise value in something I don't own. Because if somebody went and trademarked it after I blew up the Instagram page, after I got on TV, after I did all this stuff and they took it, I just made that person millions of dollars.
yep. Mm. That's big too. I'm glad you brought up trademarking because a lot of people don't think it is that it's important. Like a lot of people think that they just feeling like they just original and they think that they don't have to really trademark their stuff. And that's gonna be your biggest mistake. And another thing I'm glad you brought up when you brought up even getting that structure of your business, getting the brand domain, which is really huge because like say I go to your website and it just says Earl Hardin and I'm from, Kentucky. I don't know who you are yet and I'm looking through your website and I'm like, that could really just throw somebody off, period. So you go get taxerasers.com and then you put all your information in there. You put all your stuff in there. You put all your certifications, all that stuff on the bottom, or not even on the bottom, just under the domain. That's extremely important because it creates structure and people really like a lot of people have to start studying human behavior, right? That's what it comes down to when we talk about selling, right? Like you said, you got to be able to sell. So if you know what people are really looking for, right? They want to see that you're established. So if you're not going to establish your business, you're already setting yourself up for failure. And if your goal is to create $1 million business, you want to be operating as that $1 million business before you make that $1 million. Before you make that $1, you should already be operating as a business that is projecting to make that type of money. So if you're not ready to, trademark your business, if you're not ready to get that bank account, you're not ready to, start building and creating assets in that business name, it's really not gonna get you nowhere, right? And I want to bring it back home, right, Earl, because we both from Colorado Springs, right? Like you said, you were from here, and what do you see in Colorado Springs that, the city needs when it comes to financial literacy, when it comes to taxes, when it comes to understanding how to fund yourself, how to raise money? What are you seeing that's missing, and how are you going to position taxi racers and yourself and your team to start, making, more impact than you guys are already making?
That's a powerful question. I think we need more real collaborative spaces to work together, to learn together, so we can be abundant minded, so we can pass deals around. And I know just the way my mind works, if I'm doing right by people, I expect right to come back to me, but it doesn't have to come from that person because I
Mm,
don't know how they were built. They could have been raised on love, they could have been raised on survival. I wasn't there with them, so I don't know that. But I know how I operate, so I'm gonna do things the right way. If I know someone that's a great fit for another business, boom, I'm linking them. And if that person wants to keep getting referrals from me, they got to send something back, whether it's a check, whether it's got to be something. It's
yep.
got to be something to happen for us to continue to work together. I'm not your free marketing arm, but one thing we're going to do, and it will probably be on the monthly basis, do workshops in our office space because we have uh, I don't know what you want to call it. It's kind of like a auditorium AV audio room that's great for
Mm,
trainings
yeah.
and workshops. So I want to have people come in and we might do personal credit, wills, life insurance. And then the next one might be for higher level business. So we're talking about larger levels of funding, like refinancing your business debt, 504, getting SBA loans over $5 million, and then private equity. And have these different professionals come in. Like, can I talk about a lot of this stuff? Sure.
Right.
Is it the same coming out of my mouth as someone who is a credit expert that does it every single day? Absolutely not. I'm not going to be quoting FCR a
Yeah.
laws and statutes. Like, it's not, I didn't even say it right. That's how you know. That's how you know. I'm gonna send them your way. So
That's my
we're
point.
gonna have like these beautiful collaborative spaces where people are able to get down and do real business. And my hope is to get the bigger businesses out of hiding, because there are a lot of small-minded people who find out you're successful, you're doing well, and they start treating you different. I heard
Yep.
someone say the other day they found out a coffee shop owner that she was making $800,000 um, in her coffee shop, and they said, "Wow, I didn't know she was making that much. I'm not going to go there anymore. I'm going to go
Wow.
support someone else."
That's
So
crazy.
to me, before you knew she was making money, you liked the ambiance, you liked the product that she had. Now that you know she's making money, your jealous heart has you wanting to go somewhere else because
Yep.
you don't want to see her get wealthy. But they take their raggedy behind down to Starbucks, knowing that man has never wanted to work with black people. I don't know how
Mm.
Magic Johnson made it happen, because he
Right.
had that giant lawsuit. It was over 100,000 pages of documents showing it's explicitly stated no black people in leadership roles, no black people in ancillary businesses. So if they're buying paper for Starbucks, it can't come from a black or brown business. If they need gas for the trucks, it can't come from a black or brown business. He did all of this, stepped down, kept his stocks, kept his wealth. They put a black female CEO in the spot for a little bit. I think she did a good job, but I still
Yeah.
haven't been back because I'm just like, look, I see what the board's doing. You're doing damage control. Shout out to my sister for being the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. I love
Right.
to see her success, but I don't have to support that organization. I can spend my dollars elsewhere. So I could build up like a real black owned business. I could build up a brown owned business, a Jewish business, a gay business, and everything in between that I believe in.
Yep. Yep. And that's where it starts. People have to understand that the entrepreneurs, the small business owners in your community, they are the backbone of that community, right? And just because, even her making $800,000 a year still puts her in that small business owner category basically. So a lot of people are just ignorant, right? And I think it comes back to what you said, Earl. If you want to serve people, you're going to go serve people, and you got to move off positivity, right? All the negativity in, especially in the community, when it comes to black owned businesses, when it comes to collaboration, there's just a lot of negativity, right? And people like you, people like me, people like the go-getters in our city, we gotta, and this is for every city, we gotta start coming together and making the impact and showing them that the real folks are winning too, right? It's not just the stuff you see in, the content, or when you see on Instagram. It's not just the youngins winning too. There's a lot of people out here winning, and everybody got to come together and just celebrate the fact that everybody's on the way up. And if you are on the way up, how can you get in those spaces, start rubbing those shoulders, right? So I think the word for today is positivity, right? You got to be able to just be positive and stay in gear, right? Stay on your mission, right? So I think that if the broke people talk too much, right? The broke people always got something to say. So we gotta do better, man. And I think that especially in the city, and that's why I wanted to talk about Colorado Springs. I think you're like one of the very first people I've had from the city actually on the podcast. I usually just be making connections elsewhere. But I wanted to talk about the city because there's a lot of entrepreneurs out here, but nobody's getting recognized except for by other entrepreneurs. So I wanted to start, creating that space where there's a sense of empowerment, whether you're, like you said, black, gay, straight, woman, man, there's just has to be, collaboration, and we got to do it for the right reason. So that's why I wanted to bring up Colorado Springs. And I'm glad that, somebody that's really from Colorado Springs, like, a couple years ago, it wasn't even the way it looks like. If you see it now, it's growing and it's getting bigger, right? So there's more money involved. So I want everybody to start looking, especially if you're from Colorado Springs, I want everybody to start looking at where can I go to find, you can go to Earl's, you can go to his new space or his space when he starts bringing in those classes, and you can start getting in those rooms, right? That's the most important part of just building something, right? So I wanted to talk to the people in Colorado Springs specifically because we got to start building something, right? The city is getting bigger. There's more money coming in. There's more people here. And there's nowhere to go but up at this point, So that's why I wanted to, really just talk about the Springs and really specifically talk to you, Earl, because you really, you got a lot of knowledge, and I appreciate you for coming on. So I want to ask you one more question, and I do this with everybody on the podcast, and I want to bring it back home to taxes, right? So I want you to give me 3 things that every entrepreneur, whether they're making, $10,000 a month, whether they're making $5,000 a month, what can every entrepreneur start doing today that's going to help them save on their taxes for, the next coming months?
Perfect. First thing, 3 bank accounts. Bringing it all the way back to the beginning of the episode. Get 3 bank accounts. Every time you make money from your business, that doesn't mean you get to go spend it on your lifestyle. 1/3 of that money needs to go to taxes. And if your tax strategist is worth their weight in salt, you're not going to pay 30% in taxes. So you'll actually have money coming back that you can reinvest in the business. So that is number 1 on there. Number 2, start putting money away for retirement. Whether you're doing it in a qualified plan, which I'm not a big fan of, they can make sense, like a 401k, 403b, solo 401k, IRA, just because in the future you're going to pay 4 to 6 times more in taxes than you would pay the taxes today and put it in some tax-free. But whatever you end up doing, put money away consistently into these funds because they're going to help you out with your taxes. They're going to give you liquidity down the road. When you need that money and you don't have that money, you're going to be so glad that you put aside that money. A properly structured cash value life insurance policy can be an amazing bank for anyone who has the discipline to fund it for 2 or 3 years before you start pulling the money. I know people are going to hop in the comments, I could take money from mine in 30 days. Just because you could doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are going to be the 2 biggest things. And then once you start making a little money, pay that advisor, pay that professional.
Come on.
Everything you don't know is going to hurt you infinitely more than what you think is so.
That was big. That was short and sweet, and it gives you precise knowledge, right? So y'all, if y'all like this episode and you want to have Earl on for part 2, please drop it in the comments. Just put Earl in the comments and let us know what you learned, what your biggest takeaway from this was. Earl, I appreciate you, brother. I'm glad that you came on the podcast. I would love to do this again, and I appreciate all the knowledge you bring, and just coming to kick it with us on the Wealthy and Healthy podcast. And I appreciate you for coming in, and we're gonna do this again for sure.
Oh, for sure. Thanks so much for having me. Until the next time.
Yes, sir. Press this real quick.